So welcome everyone to this session entitled Understanding Communities, Strengthening Response, which is based on this training package on social science for humanitarian action. So in the next, let's say 43 minutes, we will be discussing some of the learnings we have had across different regions as well in terms of which tools and which materials we have been using to strengthen capacities that help us actually collect and analyze community data. So before we actually start, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Gefra Fulane. I work with the IFRC based in Geneva within the unit called Community Engagement and Accountability, and I'm the research coordinator. My background is on social science, anthropologies, a little bit of public health as well. And I will pass the floor to Andres. Over to you, Andres, introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Gefra. Good morning. My name is Andres Caro. I work in the Americas under the umbrella of the Community Engagement and Accountability team. My role is social science specialist for the region, and I have background in data analysis, international affairs and political studies, human rights, and of course, research. I believe that's pretty much it, Gefra, so please go on with you.
Well, thanks so much, Andres. We have like few, let's say, highlights as we start and reminders for everyone who is joining us this afternoon or morning, or evening, depending on where you are. And again, thank you for making the time to join this meeting. We will ask all of you, if you can see the screen as well, to make sure that you write the right name on your Zoom account. So please make sure that your name is well spelled, that we don't find those common names like the brand of your tool or Zoom, etc. Please write your name. Make sure that is there. Make sure that you mute your microphone as we continue with the presentation, and of course you can unmute yourself when the time comes to ask questions or make any comments. We will ask all of you to keep your video on as long as possible if you have a good connection for that. But this is already online. Sometimes it's very difficult. So please make sure that you turn your video on so that we can have a more interaction. And if you have any questions, please use the chat or you can raise your hand. I'm not sure if you will always be able to see the hands, but please write anything you have in the chat. If urgent, please open the mic or raise your hand. Of course, these sessions are being recorded, but if you want to take any information out of the slides or anything happening here for additional use, please make sure that you have the right permission for that. Andres.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And regarding the translation, please, it is already written in the chat in 3 different languages. Nevertheless, we're going to go over the instructions again. So please go to the bottom of your screen, right bottom, click on the 3 points, go to captions, and choose the language that you are going to be speaking in. Then choose the language you want to see your captions in. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions or if you need any help, we're going we're going here to provide support. Over.
Wonderful. Is there any question on translations, captions? Can you all understand how this works? Can we then start? Please say something, show something so that we can understand if you're there.
I'm going to repeat it in Spanish as well. Equipo, para los que hablamos español, en la parte de inferior derecha están los 3 puntos. Aquí podemos abrir los captions y eligen el idioma en el que ustedes hablarán. Y luego eligen el idioma en el que ustedes verán los mensajes. Listo, muchas gracias.
Gracias, Andres. Okay. So let's get started. Colleagues, if you have any difficulty, please let us know. You can open the mic. You can speak in Portuguese, Spanish, or English, or French. We can have like some translations if needed. So let's have this session as interactive. Although we have few slides over here, we would really like to hear from you and to learn from you as well as we present, some of the lessons that we want to bring here. Is that okay? Are you all ready to speak? Please open the mic and say something if needed. I'm not getting any interactions.
I'll open it. For me, everything is fine. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Good. Thank you so much for that. Okay, let's get started. We would like to start by, setting the tone on why do we need research and why research matters for humanitarian action in general. I know that we know about it, but it's always good to remind all of us and make sure that we're all in the same page. And of course, the reasons are many. One of them is that we live in an increasingly complex world with so many different types of crises, and most of them are unpredictable. So having evidence, having data, and understanding better, the crises that affect our communities and the communities and the way they respond is important. We also know that evidence and data are critical for, making strong and impactful decisions when it comes to humanitarian work, even if that means quick and rapid decisions or those that take more time. But we have to make sure that those decisions are not based on our own assumptions, are not based on our own experiences, but they are also backed by data and informed by recent data. And this is well aligned with the IFRC 2030 strategy, which emphasizes, all the learnings, adaptations, and the need of using evidence to adapt and perform the course of actions across the different phases of a humanitarian program. We know that for that reason, research is seen as driving, accountability, effectiveness of humanitarian action, and better impact for our actions. And this also is important to actually see how are we doing in terms of the core and the fundamental principles as well. And that's why IFRC, and because we also represent the IFRC, is in a great position and very strategic position to actually collect and analyze data, especially when it comes to community data, because we have access to communities. So the access to community through the network enables us to bring rich and contextualized data that will tell us, how the beneficiaries, how the communities, and how the affected people would like to see the response happening. So if that is fine, I would like now to quickly just hear from you, anyone who would like to say quickly, if research and data is important, and we know that there are many types of data at different levels, why do you think community data and data coming from communities is important? Any volunteer would like to say and explain quickly why community data is important? Just open the mic, it's fine. I can see all hands for now.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, I'm a little bit shy, so I'm not going to put camera, but I'm very glad that you make that question, because actually when you do, for example, rapidness assessments, sometimes it's very difficult to get.
Okay, please go ahead. You were saying when you do rapid needs assessment, it's very difficult and then it cut. Can you please repeat?
Yes. Can you hear me, please?
Yes,
Yeah?
now it's fine.
Okay, just saying that sometimes when you do needs assessments and to gather data for at local level is very difficult. And sometimes, for example, what happened with the floods in Brazil, you have like a wider picture from the media, from also from the needs assessments done by UN agencies and other international organizations. But when it comes to the local communities, to the neighborhoods, to the needs of them, it was almost impossible because the roads were blocked, everything was flooded, so it was very difficult, and we didn't have the proper information to understand how many I don't know, kilos of food each family needs at that time. So we could get a better information afterwards, like 2 weeks later, the disaster. So more than the 2 weeks. So at that point, we start to realize that the communities were already organized, and many of the activities from the intervention that we designed were outdated very quickly. So that's why it's so important to have that local information for the local communities, because the needs change very quickly, and how to design the intervention, it's vital to get how, because you can understand what they need, but how they need it and to what extent they need support is also very important to provide really quality program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Annie. I think what you said summarized everything that we want to tell you on this slide, and also what Angelina and Sarah have mentioned it in the chat. Thanks, colleagues. So basically, in a nutshell, what you have said is that we need this community data because it's so difficult to collect, but at the same time, it's so important to inform the response. I would like to add that it's also important to make sure that the response is very aligned to what people want and what people values. Again, what Annie was saying about the needs, the actual and updated need of people, which change drastically and are so dynamic, the need. So we have to make sure that this data is often collected and updated. That is needed to also better understand the local and locally led systems existing to actually support the response, but also the norms and the values that are shared in the community. Some of them are written and known, but others are not known. It's also good to understand, what are the structures, whether they are formal or informal structures existing in a certain community that we can leverage as we proceed with the response. Community data is important as well to build trust and allow access, especially to remote and vulnerable communities, and ensure that this is done in a way where cultures are respected. And that's why we included cultural diplomacy over there. It's also important to make sure that we identify the gaps that may exist most of the times within the response, the way the activities and the plans are designed, and the community's perspectives. And this is also important, the data is important to elevate the local priorities, the resources, existing capacities, the local leadership, that otherwise it would be very, very difficult to know if we only base on pre-existing national or global data. And of course, we're talking about humanitarian sector. So community data also is important to strengthen the reputation and the public perception about what humanitarian entities do, whether to identify the gaps on how we operate, for example, towards our fundamental principles, or to strengthen the way we operate and ensure accountability with target communities. So that's why this session will be dedicated into presenting the social science package that is being used somehow to support us on collecting and analyzing data that takes place at the community level. So basically, it's a training package that teach different people at different levels on how to do studies with communities. The training package has been started by the Risk Communication and Community Engagement Collective Service, so RCCE Collective Service, but the IFRC, which is also part of the collective service, was happy to produce an adaptation of this training in 2022. So we have a sort of Red Cross and Red Crescent adaptation of the different materials that will be presented here. The training package comes with different PowerPoint presentations that can be accessible by anyone, of course, upon a request, with additional links, and also how to train trainers or trainers that will also deliver other trainers at different levels. It shows how that can happen both for offline or in person or online, especially in times like these ones where resources are limited. It comes with additional readings. So basically, it's a training package that can be picked, mixed, and adapted according to your needs, the audience that you want to train, and according to the context and priorities as well. It applies for different thematic areas from health, although it has started with health, it also applies for climate, for air warning, migration, etc., with the right adaptations. So basically, this is the initial structure of the training. It comes with 7 different modules. The first module being an introductory module on, what is social science. And just for me to give you a heads up, the social science is the science of basically like a group of different disciplines that have tools and methods that help us to actually do studies, especially at the community level. We're talking about, learnings that came from anthropologists, from sociologists, from historians, etc. And they've been all consolidated in simple tools that help us as humanitarians to actually do studies with communities. So although we call it a social science package, it's not about science, it's really application on the ground. It's about using these social science tools for our benefits in terms of how do we assess the operations and the response. So the first module is very introductory. It explains and what is operational research, how can we advocate for this, especially in times where funding is limited or where buy-in is also limited. So it comes with some suggestions in terms of those introductory components. The second one is about, how can we understand context? How can we do context analysis? And how can we better understand the socio-behavioral drivers or barriers or enablers? Because, a response and the success of the response depends on how people will react, how they will accept or not. And this has to be aligned with context and priorities as well. So although this initial module looks into the generic, context analysis and social behavioral drivers, we have adapted it to the Red Cross and Red Crescent context. So we look into also understanding, what are the individual drivers, the social, political, the cultural, economic factors, everything that may impact in the way, any individual will accept or not to move from one, for example, from one flooded area to one safe area. We know that, there are many factors that may limit people from doing that. So this session is to better understand people's behaviors, how to better understand behaviors, how to improve behaviors. But of course, any study done with communities has to respect ethics. So we have another module dedicated to ethical considerations when you do these studies with communities. And for us, this comes naturally as humanitarians because we need to align ethically with all the principles of do not harm, consent, etc., as part of our core values, as part of our mandate. So this is also an important module to look at. But the major block of this training package is mostly in the operationalization of the research. So the module number 4 is about, how to localize research. What does it mean? How to design it? How do you put the research questions together? And also goes deep into, the quantitative and qualitative approaches when you do research, whether we're talking about surveys, you're talking about focus group discussions, key informant interviews, and also how to collect and analyze data using those different techniques, how to do it rapidly, how to do it in depth if you have more resources, if you have more time. So this is mostly what this module captures, but also how to triangulate data with other, data types. So, for example, you can think about community feedback data, epidemiological data, projection data. You can think about any other types of data that has to come together, EVCA, etc., etc. So the session, the module number 4 is about, once you have done research, what then? And this is about how you synthesize different types of research you interpret, you create a story that will say something about the gaps or the opportunities on what you're looking for. And finally, for this group, this is on how to translate knowledge into action, because we're not doing studies as academic sector does for the sake of doing studies. We're doing them in order to improve operations. So how to translate studies into actions. And at the end, the last and very difficult one is how to actually track the uptake of and the impact of what we are doing. So we have been doing many assessments, we've been doing perception surveys, we've been doing, post-distribution monitoring for over years and years. How can we track over time the impact that these exercises has been having into, our operations, and to strengthen also the work and the institution we are supporting? So I see a hand. Patrick, you want to jump in before I continue? Please feel free.
Hello, everyone. Am I allowed to ask a question at this point, or do you want to complete first?
We will have 5 minutes for initial questions before the final discussion. So if you want to keep that, if it's not very urgent, we can keep it to the first 5 minutes, if that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you. It can wait.
Wonderful. Thank you. So basically, this is a summary of what we have as IFRC and how we adopted this training package. I will ask Andres to copy and paste the link that leads you to access some of these materials. We did, first of all, in 2022, a global training, and then we did an adaptation in Nairobi, in Africa, another one in Panama, in a nutshell. And then we did another regional one in French in Africa as well. And then we had the Europe region. And there are other adaptations that my colleague Andres will also help us understand better how it works. This is just a summary of what I showed in those few images in terms of which modules we have and what each module has as well. So I guess some of these materials can be shared with you, but feel free, if you have any questions related to, how this works, to take a note. We will have 5 minutes after my speech, and then at the end of the session, we'll have 15 minutes for broader discussion. So I think basically this is all I wanted to show you, and these are some of the examples in terms of how this was applied for public health emergencies, for Ebola, for example, in terms of how important it was to collect and use real-time community feedback and perceptions from communities. In terms of climate change adaptations as well, we've been working massively in different contexts, using the learnings from that package to understand how people have been impacted by climate, but also how they understand, define, and prioritize the risks that they have in their communities. Some of you know already about the Community Trust Index, which is this umbrella initiative that looks into how do we measure trust and how do we foster it, and use a one standardized methodology that is the same across different countries. This is also a learning that can be captured through the training package. And of course, the early warning and anticipatory action, different studies are being done over there, including this one, recent one in Mozambique, that looks into understanding how people understand early warnings, how they actually trust those, so that it will enable timely actions that will protect themselves and their family. I will stop here in the interest of time. And yes, if there is one or two, I can take one or two questions for now and then pass to Andres for the remaining presentation, and then I will moderate the chat. And like I said, at the end, we will also have a broader discussion. Over. Patrick, you can start, please.
Thank you very much, Gefra, if I pronounce your name right. For that, I really, really appreciate. And that is a lot of resources right there that can really help. Now, what I've been struggling with, I work in the PMER unit, and what I've been struggling with is how do we make the community, how does our research become credible to the community to a point that they want to follow up with it, they understand why the connection between the research and the improvement of their lives and livelihoods, because all they are interested in is what is going to help their lives, but they are also somehow interested in what is the credibility of this information. So I've been struggling with issues around not being too scientific to the community, but having a level in which they can understand why this finding is like this. So I mean, that balance is something I've been struggling with. If maybe you can try and help me with that or discuss that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's one of the most important questions and reflections as well for us in terms of how are we ensuring accountability with people and with communities as we do research, because we have seen many things. We have seen research fatigue, and we also have seen, like in many cases, maybe communities do not understand why are we doing this. So few things. First of all, it's not easy, of course, to clarify this, but we have also worked on some participatory approaches that helps us localize the research in a way that, before you go there and collect data, they're like pre-steps where you discuss the questions, you adjust the questions, you adjust even the proper initiative or project with communities. And you have learned as part of the community engagement and accountability approach as well, different approaches and tools that help us localize the research and ensure that it's very participatory. But other than that, and other than what we do as IFRC, there are many different initiatives and innovations in this mean as well. I mean, we have the advantage of, having a network of volunteers who are part of the community, who are actually supporting us in collecting the data. But beyond what the IFRC network does, we also have initiatives like the citizen-led research or data collection, where you have, in one community, like very simple methodologies to ensure that citizens are engaged in the collection exercise instead of having the PMER team or having the external research team doing that. So basically, I mean, my answer is that should be like part of our reflection, and we should make sure that we acquire like the different tools existing that will help us inform the communities why we are doing this, and make sure that this is respecting their willing as well, and make sure that we avoid research fatigue. I hope that's useful for now, but otherwise we can continue with the discussion. Thanks so much, Patrick. Is there any other hand? Otherwise, I can them in the chat. Any questions while I pass back to you? So I will just pass back to you, Andres. I will stop sharing my screen now so that you can share yours. And thank you so much, colleagues. We will still come back to a discussion at the end of this session. Over to you, Andres.
Thank you so much, Gefra. Well, this has been fantastic. Let's go to the, please confirm me if you can see my screen now.
Yes, perfectly.
All right. Can you see it with the caption or without?
We can see with the captions.
We can see with the captions. All right. So I'm going to close
We
this
can
really
see
quickly.
with the captions in English.
All right. Yeah. So let's talk. I'm going to start jumping because we are running out of time. So I trust people will see them. Let's think about the first question. I mean, Gefra has been talking about the structure and how applicable and operational that is. Nevertheless, here in the Americas, we had like a different challenge, and that challenge was how do we understand and use this kind of scientific processes and tools and so on. So we started to talk about it inside the region. Well, basically, and there were like three key aspects that just pop up. The first one was, okay, let's go with this scientific approach. But without losing the point that we are a humanitarian organization, and sometimes time is against us. For example, in emergencies or these kind of scenarios. So first, the first door for this was, okay, let's build these kind of capacities, but ground them on the local capabilities of our teams, on what our teams know, of what our teams feel, and let's keep it practical. We, as Gefra was mentioning, we don't want to be this kind of scientific and top-notch and academic research. What we need, that's what national societies were telling us, is to be operational, to be right on time, and to provide us with solutions to channel community voices to our decision making rapidly. And that's why we had to, that's why we wanted to, that's why we wanted to, I don't want to say this right here, but no worries. We had to reorganize and restructure the training package. The first thing that we did was, the principal things is that we took out these kind of fundamentals as sessions, and we put it as cross-cutting messages through all the other sessions. The second part was monitoring. We applied basically a baseline and an evaluation, and an end line and an evaluation model that we are going to see afterwards. And another part is that we are under this umbrella of community engagement and accountability. So what we wanted was to show that we were able to put the scientific capacities to connect those community voices inside all the community engagement work that has been done in the movement. So when we connected that, we start moving things around. And another point, another change was we stopped this, or we tried to cut out to reduce the theoretical sessions and put them practical. So we moved to that kind of sense of, okay, we only have one. I'm going to show you later. We're going to have one theoretical, but the rest of the sessions are going to be practical. We're going to be learning. This is a sentence that we use. While we use it, we're going to learn. So people start grabbing things even on the first day. And I would like to highlight something here. Before jumping into these kind of capabilities, we had this basic data management competencies module. That was, it started as an extra one. In that one, we work COBOL, we work Microsoft Excel, we work Canva from the basics. So when people start working in the quantitative module, they already had these kind of technical skills to start grabbing things around. So that was a key part. And here, I would like to show you. Here is the structure of it's very similar to the structure that Gefra showed before. But what I wanted to show here is that there are only two theoretical sessions. The rest is practical and practical and practical. And a quick overview on this. After that tweak, we saw a growing interest on this kind of this TOT. First, we had. First, we had so far we have 139 people trained. It has been 5 editions of this training, and in addition to a regional one that we hold, that the Panama National Society. I know that was in Panama, but that was in 2022. In December 2022, and that was a regional one. We had people coming from the Caribbean, from Argentina, from Guyana. So it was the first one and the one that we grounded on this kind of tweaks. Later on, we had 5 more in Guatemala, editions of this TOT in Guatemala, Panama, Ecuador, Paraguay, and recently in Venezuela. And but yeah, all right, it was good to adopt it, but what was the added value of this? Well, basically, we added five aspects, five key aspects. The first one is that before jumping into like a fixed package, we start talking with the national society, saying, all right, let's design the exercise and let's adjust the exercise to your actual needs, to your scenarios, to the kind of data that you have. And if you remember the first aspect that national societies were mentioning, to build on the capacities of your team. What are the uses that your team is going to apply to this, to do with this? So we start building on that, and with a focus. For example, so in some national societies, we have worked with early action, anticipatory action, in some other feedback mechanisms, other institutionalization. So we are like trying to move things around depending on the national society interest. And we even adapt the exercises, the mock data that we use for those exercises. So it's kind of familiar for people. Then another part is that we have created commitment coming from the participants. So it's not like they just go to the TOT because this is a training of trainers. They don't just go there. They are committed to replicate this TOT inside their own teams and then to apply it in actual projects or actions or however. So we are putting this in the core of the operation and disseminating and making it grow inside the national society by this second point, second added value. The third one is an open feedback mechanism, which is through the whole sessions, TOT, we are checking how people are feeling, how is the cognitive process advancing, if they have problems, even in the emotional part. We have faced in some national societies people saying, no, I don't want to do this. I didn't sign for this. So we start working and adapting things and working specifically with those people. And so far, we have seen very strong transformations on how people reach out for research and data analysis and data comprehension, but all under this umbrella of community engagement and accountability, and of course, operations. The fourth one is the big deal, and I that we saw was that people used to say, yeah, okay, I got the knowledge, but now, so what? So what we did was create a simulation that's a cross-cutting activity through the whole TOT. So people from day one start learning, and those exercises while doing exercises, and those exercises are going to fit a presentation that they're going to show to leaders of their own national society the very last day. So they have to prepare this kind of presentation, this kind of documents, infographies with a really strong research/data management capabilities. So that's something different. They know how to do it. They feel the rigor, sometimes the pressure of doing it right. So that's another point. The simulation is using it while learning it. And the last one is the TOT evaluation model. We saw that, all right, we need to measure this. So what we did, I'm so sorry for showing these captions. So we had two kind of evaluation parts. What we wanted first was to evaluate through a baseline and a final assessment the perceptions of familiarity of people with the knowledge of that they are going to acquire. But in addition, what we did was an objective assessment. It was under Bloom's taxonomy, and every time they finish a session, we run a test, a really quick test, looking for to understand if they were remembering, understanding, and applying the knowledge they just got. But beyond that, on the simulation and through observation, of course, we are covering these other categories of analysis, evaluation, and creation. And by the end, we present this kind of reports. These are just screenshots of the report that we present to national societies, and they know in which parts they need to keep working, or which are the potentials or the strengths of the national society after the TOT. So we have that kind of evaluation. And to close, I would like to show some examples of what national societies have done with the knowledge got in this TOT. These are just recent examples. First, Guatemala Red Cross. First, they have strengthened their internal capacities, and they have to engage community voices into decision making and even advocacy. And we have here two examples. First, here in Tomali project, and through community dialogue platforms, they facilitated and got a donation of 3 schools latrines. But that need was detected through this kind of observation and systematics and analysis of information. And we have here, as I was mentioned, the umbrella of CA, of community engagement. In the top picture, we see these boxes, suggestion boxes, and they after that they start seeking and systematizing, of course, that information. And the picture at the bottom, that's the latrines installation. So in terms of in this national society specifically, they have also strengthened their capacity to respond, to public health emergencies. That's in a nutshell. The second one is Ecuadorian Red Cross. They have a strengthening programs through community feedback analysis. And the screenshots that we can see here are products that the National Society is doing right now. Please give me 1 sec. Thank you. Is doing right now in 2 or 3 programs that I'm seeing here. The first one is in a cash program, and through the analysis of the feedback, they have adjusted the program, the way the program was applied in short time. Another one was through a qualitative analysis of feedback. They work on a draft of loads, I believe, and they were able to provide and to early detect misperceptions. So in that way, they create messages, key messages, to start approaching to those messages in an early way. We have here the Panama Red Cross, and they have reinforcing their humanitarian identity through evidence-based analysis. So basically what they did was leveraging analytical tools to strengthen its auxiliary role, and of course institutional perception through the ecosystem, even with governmental institutions. So basically what they did was to create and to open national perception survey that has been more than 1,700 to understand public perception, and they are tweaking the ways of this is presented, and the ways of the national society is operating in some parts. Of course, this is linked with humanitarian diplomacy, and of course, government coordination. And the last one, sorry, I have 2 more. The Paraguayan Red Cross, they have also a strengthening this is focused to programs, livelihoods and resilience through feedback system again. They have been able to work in a different way through branches, informing decision making. For example, here in the conception branch, they work. They basically help to create or to strengthen a livelihoods program. I'm not going to go to the details, but
Yes.
thank you, Gefra. I saw your time. Finally, Venezuelan Red Cross. This was our last one, and we have here Barinas and Por la Mar branches. They have worked also in the feedback, understanding, and so on. But in addition, they already have replicating this TOT internally. They have been doing a fantastic job, and I believe I'm going to cut myself here. There are a lot of things and a lot of examples, wonderful examples of this, but time is over, so I'm going to just.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these conversations should take more than 45 minutes for sure. Andres, can I ask you to go to the last slide as we conclude? Yes, exactly. As we conclude, please use the QR code as recommendations from the long night research we were requested for you to provide timely feedback. So please do use the QR code. We try to address all of the questions, but for those that were not answered, you may have seen the latest message I sent with our contact links to the training package. Please do use them for furthering and continuing this conversation, allowing us to also, learn from you and exchange further. Okay, thanks so much, colleagues. Let us know if there is any burning question, and as the platform is still running, maybe we can take those. Please jump in if you need.